Hello, everyone. Quick heads up before we start today's episode. The Global Agile Summit is happening on May the 4th. Yes, May the 4th, and even with a big blowout Star Wars party, you have to join. It will be online, and it's, like always, free to attend. We have 4 tracks this year that I'm really excited about, and I think you will too. Stick around to the end of the episode to know what they are. If you want to check it out already now, you can check it out at bit.ly/global agile 26. That's the numerals 2 and 6 at the end. So one more time, that's bit.ly/global agile 26. All one word, all lowercase, and 2 and 6 are the numerals 2 and 6. So stick around till the end of the episode and I'll tell you what's in store. But for now, on to today's episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Wednesday. This week we have with us Viktor Glinka. Hey, Viktor. Welcome back.
Hi, Vasco. Hello again.
So today is Wednesday, where we talk about the biggest challenge. And we want to explore a challenge because we learn a lot from considering other people's experience, what they have gone through, what they have tried, and of course, generate ideas for us when we face similar challenges. So what is the challenge you bring to us for our shared exploration today, Viktor?
Mm-hmm. Well, the challenge is about working with multiple teams in a large-scale Scrum setup.
As a Scrum Master, I guess.
As a Scrum Master, yes. And the challenge itself is a transition from component teams to cross-component, cross-functional teams. So imagine a company, let's say, of 8 to 10 teams where every team owned their own part of the system, of the product, and never used to touch anything else. And the company is stuck in delivery for months. So there was no way not to change anything.
Before we dive into that, let's do a very quick high-level overview of the consequences of organizing teams around components. And I'm sure you have
Absolutely.
a lot of stories to share. But just very quickly, what are kind of the immediate and easy-to-understand consequences of organizations that choose to organize around component teams?
So usually organizations choose to organize teams around components on the premise of ownership. So they think, okay, if they will own this specific component, they will become specialized more and more in that component.
And faster, probably, right?
Faster. So they optimize for speed.
In the component, this is important. Speed
Absolutely.
In every independent component.
Absolutely, that's right. So they believe teams will be eventually more productive. As I said, productive in regard to that component, yes. But our customers do not use our components. They use the product as a whole. And when it comes to integration, the real problem pops up. So how do you integrate? So
before we dive into that, this is an important aspect. So we have these teams that are components focused, and they are really productive, and they produce really high quality components. But then we need to integrate, and then something happens. So tell us what happens when we try to integrate quote unquote perfectly developed components into a whole system.
Yeah, obviously they're not perfect because you have to rework them, rewrite the code, rerun the test. In
fact, what usually happens is that a perfect component is usually what we would call locally optimized, so optimized for the component functionality, which then has cascading consequences depending on where in the architecture it is. It can have many cascading consequences over many other components when you put them together as a system.
Absolutely. And moreover, in that kind of setup, you always have responsibility gaps. And you never expect.
Hey, Viktor, your API broke.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's not my problem. It's the other team.
No, the API didn't change. What do you mean it broke?
Oh. That's right. Yeah.
All kinds of these conversations happen. The point you made actually is very important, right? Like that those responsibility gaps are a natural consequence of very concrete and sharply defined responsibility areas.
Yeah. And it becomes very sticky to developers. And you know what? They become associate themselves with the component. So
Yeah,
they
it
say
becomes
we
an
are,
identity crisis even,
yeah,
right?
yes, we're a billing team where we we don't deal with anything else. That's what we do.
Oh, you want me to do other things, but billing is such a complex environment. How
Yeah.
could we do it without becoming worse
Yeah.
at billing?
And that develops fear to touch anything else. That develops fear of being perceived as not professional enough when you start working on another component. So that what actually happened in my story. So people were quite savvy in their own components, and when we mixed the teams, make them cross-functional, cross-component, we got a lot of complaints like, hey, I was really productive previously and now I feel super unproductive. I'm demotivated. I cannot finish anything. And we're
Because it is, I
approaching,
mean, and let's be
yeah,
honest, it's true, right? Like if you've always worked in billing and then you're suddenly asked to do changes to front end components, then you're going to be lost. Like that's the first consequence, right? Like you're
yes,
lost. And then second, you have doubts. Like I've never done this before. I'm not going to be as good as I was in the billing side. And one thing that is really interesting is that this component based team structure is kind of self-reinforcing because the more you focus on components, the more you need to focus on components. Why? Because as a team that owns a set of components, then I'm going to need somebody's help to work
yeah,
with other teams. And that somebody is going to be an architect or a project manager. Now you have two other people that are personally and identity linked to the existence of components, because the moment you remove the components, then there's no need for the architect and there's no need for the project manager. So the organization dynamic reinforces the component-based architecture and the components-based team organization.
precisely. That's a trap, I would say. So yes, as I mentioned, we got a lot of complaints. And the first thing what we did, we tried to calm people down and say that that's absolutely normal. That's learning curve. We do not expect you to know everything at once. We just expect that you, as a particular team, eventually, over time, will be able to finish any element of the product backlog. So with that, we did two things. First, we called them down and we explained the perfection vision. And we said, hey, we don't know how much time would it take. We just want you to prioritize learning over over deadlines.
Okay, so and how did you justify that? Because of course that vision sounds good if you're not under pressure, if there's no, I mean, these days even threats of layoffs and all of that. So that vision works if there's no other pressure coming from the outside. So
That's true.
how did you justify that difficult journey to get to what you call the perfection vision?
So we were lucky enough to have some time credit, let's say a couple of months from the leadership team, and during that time we did our best to, as I told, educate and coach teams, lead mock programming sessions, resolve some impediments. Of course, that was enough. But it showed us that we are on the right path. And what we did next, because the organization had already some commitments and which imposed a lot of pressure that we tried to keep outside the teams. So we reworked the roadmap. So we told our stakeholders, and that work involved of a lot of efforts from the product owner to negotiate, to explain how actually things would change for stakeholders. So in short, we focused on less topics at the moment and explained that we would not give you dates. but we will be constantly checking on with you. We will be constantly giving you information about our progress. We will be inviting you to our sprint reviews. So instead of transactional relationship, we try to switch to collaboration with them.
So if I hear you right, the experiment was, okay, if we remove the time pressure, and if we say we're going to give you support to go in this direction, right? Like establish that long-term vision and say, hey, it's a process. We're not going to go there from one sprint to the other. We're going to get there step by step, and we're also going to keep you informed, and we're going to give you support. And did that help? Did the team start to be more positive towards the change once you did that work?
Partially, yes. I'll explain what we also did. So it's not only about delivering in time; it's about delivering what was most important work. So you know that dilemma: outcomes, outputs. So before that, organization was highly output focused, and me and other Scrum Masters, we tried to make a transition to outcomes. So we motivated teams to learn more about customers, what they actually would need if that feature would be delivered. In practice, that we organized some customer interviews. So during that interviews, developers lost their fear, first of all, because they were a bit shy to cooperate with stakeholders, and they actually understood that it is better to talk to them directly without any middleman, because they understand better what they need. And the same we did with stakeholders. So we asked them, hey, what benefits would bring this topic and this and this and this? And we tried to focus everyone on the outcomes rather than outputs.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, I guess, opens the, let's call it the system question, right? Because when we go from components to, in team topology, they call it value stream aligned, or you're talking about outcome focused teams, then what we are talking about is that it's not how much work you do in a component, is what you can get to the finish line, i.e. customer facing, market facing, right? And that is what then starts to allow us to think through the importance of having that system perspective of software development. So rather than all of our components are on time, and then you spend 6 months doing what we call maturation of software in system testing, you actually start saying, no, we only have 3 features, but they're all on time. And before, we had all of the components on time, but 0 features because none of it worked together.
Absolutely. And I have a good example illustrating that, how our development director and engineer managers were great help in that situation. So they participated in the refinement sessions with the teams and tried to focus them on reducing complexity. So I remember one quote from the development director: you might not develop anything if it still satisfies customer need. So his point was about, hey, try a new creative way. It doesn't have to be that old spec. Probably you will just delete the code and still customer would get what they need.
I remember in one project that I was part of, one of the developers was able to remove 30% of the code as measured by lines of code, 30% of the code base, and still add functionality to the product. And that was an eye opener. That was a great story. Thank you for sharing that, Viktor.
That's true. Thanks.
Hi there, friends. Thanks for sticking around till the end of the episode. So let me tell you what's coming. On May 4th, we're running the Global Agile Summit. It will be online, and I want you there. This year, we have 4 tracks, and each one is built around real conversations with practitioners. No slides, no keynote theater, just honest interviews with people doing the work. just like you. The first track is AI in organizations, where practitioners show what actually works. No hype, just AI that makes your Monday better. Happy Monday, everybody. And then we have the people track, honest conversations about putting humans at the center of how we work and keeping them there. And third is Agile in construction. And yes, I really mean brick and mortar construction. Lean and Agile actual job sites. Field leaders removing waste, teams transforming how buildings get built. Stay tuned for what I think will be a super track on Agile in construction. And the fourth track is Agile in gaming, how game studios ship without burning out. Agile inside the creative pressure cooker. Over the years, we've had more than 12,000 participants since 2017, the time of the first summit organized with the podcast. And this year, we're making it easier than ever to join. You can register for free and get access to the summit sessions live during the event week. That's May 4th to May 6th. Or you can grab the practitioner pass and get immediate access to last year's keynotes from Jürgen Appelo, Gojko Adzic, and Mirete Kangas. Right now, even before the summit starts. So grab your practitioner pass and start learning today. Head on over to bit.ly/Global Agile 26. That's 26, the numerals 2 and 6. Sign up and I'll see you on May the 4th. And one more time, here we go, bit.ly/Global Agile 26. All lowercase, all one word, and 26, that's the numeral 2 and the numeral 6. I'll see you on the conference floor.